Competitiveness, you know, the analogy I've been using, because my first job at Microsoft was as a product manager. And so, you know, what I like to say about competitiveness is Washington State is a product that competes every day to attract, retain, expand employers. And I think the Commerce Department should be the product manager for the state. We should be working with the network of people all over the state that sell and market the state every day as part of what they do. And how do we get the feedback from the network about where we're winning and where we're losing, and figure out how to make our feature set as a product stronger and stronger over time by bringing the feedback from the network back into Olympia to the policymakers that essentially determine our feature set as a product and our competitiveness. And so, so we want to be that product manager for the state. We need to work very closely with all of you out in the state that are selling and marketing it every day as part of your jobs, and make sure that we're just in a very tight feedback loop there and constantly improving our product. And so that's really the essence of what the competitiveness priority is about for us. Education and workforce training, it's pretty clear that, that this is a huge lever on our competitiveness moving forward, is how high a quality of workforce we have. And my sense is that the employer perspective on that system has not been as prominently represented as it could be in Olympia, at least. And so we want to try to, we don't run any programs in this area, so we're not going to be spinning up a huge team here, but we're going to try to have at least a smart person in commerce who's thinking about this issue from the employer perspective, and making sure that that perspective gets into the dialogue about what we're doing with our education and workforce training systems. Efficient regulation, I mean, you know, I think that over and over and over I heard about this, and more I started asking, is it about the standards that we're holding ourselves to, whether it's in safety or environment or wherever it might be, or is it about the implementation? Is it about the way we implement those standards, the way we interact with customers, businesses, and other people trying to get projects done? And I'm convinced that 3/4 of it, at least, is about the implementation. And so we want to be a champion for everything we can do to be more efficient as a state in the way that we regulate. And I also have a theory that the soft cost of complying with regulation is actually a higher cost for a lot of businesses than the hard costs of paying unemployment insurance or taxes or whatever it might be. I don't know that that's true, but I suspect that it might be for a lot of businesses out there. And so I don't think there's a silver bullet answer here, but we need to have, you know, a group of folks that are thinking about and working with our partners in state government that do regulate, and championing every good idea for how we can get more efficient as a state in the way that we regulate. Because every little improvement we make in this area is money right to the bottom line of every company that experiences that regulation. So, so we will spin that up and try to be a champion there. And then infrastructure investment is the 4th global priority. As I mentioned, a lot of that funding has been swept to cover our operating deficits in the last couple of years. That's a ticking clock at the foundation of our economy. We cannot afford not to keep our infrastructure up to date and expect to be successful economically. So we need to figure out how to restore that funding, working with our partners in local government and other people that know how important this is. And I think we have an opportunity as we refund it to also improve the way we fund infrastructure, to get more flexibility at the local level, to get more flexibility in the way we think about it at the state level, to make better use of the assets that we have already in the infrastructure area. So we have some ideas here, and we will be looking to partner with a lot of you on bringing something to the legislature next session that really gets us refunding infrastructure and improving it as we do that. I'll be more brief on the bottom 4, community capacity. My agency, Commerce, does deliver a lot of community-related programs through community-based organizations that are our key partners. And we believe that you can't build a strong economy on a weak community. If you don't have a strong community foundation, businesses won't locate or expand or succeed in a community. So that's an important priority, and working with those community-based organizations to do that. Rural focus. People talked to me a lot before last summer about the Cascade Curtain and Eastern Washington and Western Washington. And having gone around the state all summer, I feel like it's more about rural Washington versus urban Washington or semi-urban Washington. And you know, just listening to the details of people's frustrations, I just think there are 2 different sets of issues around economic success in a rural community versus in a more urban community. And we need to think about this. We need to be thinking about what we can do to help smaller communities. The playing field is tilted away from them. I mean, it's more of a struggle in a rural community. And so we need at least a couple of smart people thinking about what can we do to help rural communities that want to be successful be more successful. And again, we don't have a ton of programs in this area right now, but we are going to dedicate one or two at least smart people to thinking about this and working with people that have ideas. Sector focus is about recognizing that we have a very diverse economy in this state. There are a number of major sectors that are a big part of our state's success, whether it's agriculture or aerospace or software or energy, or there's a number of them, forest products, wine. So the opportunity here, I think, is for the largest sectors, and the sectors that bring money into our state's economy and the sectors that have opportunity to innovate and grow. Can the Department of Commerce have a person that's engaging with the companies in that sector and figuring out what is Washington State's strategy to help that industry sector to continue to be successful in our state, and delivering a plan and then working with the companies in that industry to execute that plan in the course of the year. And then the last one is small business. And here again, when I came into my job, I said, where's our small business team? And the answer was, not only did Commerce not have a small business team, it didn't have a single person that was dedicated to thinking about small business issues. Well, you know, that's 60% of the jobs in our state or more, and it's just not excusable, you know, to not have at least a small team thinking about our product as it relates to small business and what we can do to champion policies that make the state a better place to be a small business. And so those are the priorities. There are also important issues like tourism, Chris, that touch on these priorities in a number of places, whether it's the marketing value of tourism. It markets our state to, you know, to high potential employees and potential future business owners that might locate in our state. It's a sector that drives economic, you know, growth into our state. It's a rural, I know it's a rural priority from talking to rural communities as a way to generate economic growth in rural communities. So there are also important activities like tourism that weave through this set of priorities and that are absolutely going to be an important part of what we do moving forward. So that's kind of an overview of the framework, and really for us, you know, this is kind of a timeline, but the next step for us is to really flesh out the details on each of those priorities. And those details are, first of all, what are we measuring? Because until I know what we're measuring in each of those priorities, I don't know how to evaluate whether we're making progress or not, and I don't know how to trade off one good idea versus another because I don't know what the metrics are. So we need to decide what we're measuring. We need to inventory the programs that are out there today and how they're driving, you know, those metrics, and then we need to figure out what our ideas are for moving those issues forward. And I think that will culminate in a strategic plan that we owe at the end of June, and then we'll be busy proposing policy and changes and executing against that plan starting, you know, later this summer. So I hope actually to be out here later in the summer sort of presenting you more details for those that are interested on what we plan to do in each of those priority areas. I'll show you briefly a little inside baseball. I mean, one of the important parts of moving forward with Commerce is aligning the organization to, you know, to the new mission and the priorities. And you know, we've had 8 different divisions reporting to us and largely are organized in a functional way. And we've basically are consolidating that down to 5. And I think there are 3 key customer groups that we need to be focused on in this agency. The first one is employers, and businesses being most of the employers, although there are other employers. The second customer group being local governments. I think we do a lot of things with local governments, and infrastructure is obviously the big one, but there are a bunch of other things we do help local governments do planning and other things like that. So that's another key customer group for us. And the third one is the community-based organizations I mentioned before that implement housing programs and other social programs that we fund, or we're the state, you know, state party funding those things. So what you see here is essentially 2 groups up top. One is administrative, and the other is called innovation and policy priorities. Innovation and policy priorities is really that effort to begin to interact with other state agencies and the state as a whole around key issues like those issues I just discussed. And then 3 groups that are more operational and that are very customer oriented in the way they're set up. So we just announced that organization last week, so we're beginning to shift around and get lined up that way.